Hello and welcome to another Dutch football podcast from Football-Oranje. I'm Michael Statham and I'm here with regulars James Rowe and Michael Bell as we discuss everything Dutch football, including the Dutch national team's recent victory over Portugal and bits and pieces on the Eredivisie as well. You are listening to us on either YouTube, SoundCloud or iTunes, where you can also download this podcast. Enjoy. Before we start, I'd just like to let listeners know that we're currently running a competition on our YouTube channel. If you go to Football-Oranje on the YouTube channel, there is currently a competition to win a free Dutch football t-shirt. All you have to do is subscribe to our channel, comment which shirt you would like, watch the video and you'll see the choices, and then you're in with a chance of winning. Competition closes on the 7th of April. Alright then. We've just come back off an international break, where the Netherlands lost 1-0 at home to England and then beat Portugal 3-0 away, which was a big surprise victory, and in the manner of it as well. Let's open the floor. So, guys, what did you think of the Portugal game, and especially off the back of the England disappointment?
I think two games were just night and day, really. After the England game, everything was pretty down about the Netherlands. You had all these articles coming out saying that Dutch football was dead, the way they played against England, and all the players were getting criticised. But against Portugal, you got to say that Koeman changed his formation to a 5-3-2, played the right players, and it worked perfectly. They soaked up that pressure from Portugal earlier on and just hit them on the counter. I think it's amazing how well some of the players played. Like De Ligt against Ronaldo, kept him quiet the whole game. Even he was getting frustrated and pushed De Ligt over at one point. Even Tony Vilhena at left back, that was inspired. Davy Pröpper in midfield was excellent. And up front, even Ryan Babel and Memphis Depay looked like a great combination with their pace. I didn't see it coming. I thought Portugal were going to be too strong, but it's a great win. It's a great start for Koeman. If he got 2 losses, everyone would be a bit down right now, but the win over Portugal makes it look like the future's brighter again.
Yeah, I concur with Mike. I think the win in Portugal was a surprising victory. Although, from my point of view, the fact that it was played on a neutral ground, in terms of friendly game, it can be quite telling. I think if that game was played in Lisbon or even in Porto, the scenario might have been a little bit different. But it's good to get a first win for Koeman under his belt. This, as I say, this is a long process. This is just the beginning. I thought Davy Pröpper had a great game, and he's a great player, and he should have started against England. I can't understand for the life of me why he didn't. And going back to the England game as well, that I was surprised about Weghorst didn't get longer than 5 minutes. To be capped for the first time, you would have expected him to get at least 20. But it's a good start, reasonable start really, and just hopefully with the upcoming matches in the summer that he can carry on the good work and the positive changes that have already been made by Koeman.
Yeah, it's a good point you made about the stadium. I didn't realise for a little while in the match that it was being played in Switzerland, because of the way Portugal had the ball to start with. I was like, it's Portugal at home, but yeah, the Netherlands took their chances. If you look at the stats, they only had 4 shots on target the entire match. 3 of them were goals, and 1 of them was a header that was saved by the Portuguese goalkeeper. But it was a terrific match, and when you look at the stats, you wouldn't have thought that the Netherlands actually played so well and outplayed the Portuguese. What stood out for me was the way the Dutch players just knew exactly what they were doing on the pitch, especially on the back of that defeat to England, because they knew where they were going to be on the pitch. It was a really rigid formation, apart from the wing-backs, which flew up and down the pitch. They knew where they had to be, they knew what they had to do, and De Ligt just marshalled Ronaldo perfectly. I can't believe he's only 18. He's such a talent. Now I have some questions. I'd like to open up with some questions from Abdul. He says that, first of all, the 5-3-2 is a brilliant plan, and we should stick to it at the moment because it works well. What do you two think? Is it the way forward? And if so, why? Why isn't a 4-3-3 the way forward anymore? and why does a 5-3-2 suit the players better?
I think in the first instance it just offers more security. Koeman, what with him being a defender himself and knowing the strength of a strong defence, I think he wants to put a good base in the ground to build from. But he's often said during his unveiling as well that this is a team that's got to learn to play different systems within matches, and I think that they feel comfortable with 5-3-2 at the minute because the players themselves, even in a short space of time, they see progress is being made. They see progress in terms of a good result in a friendly game in Geneva against Portugal. There appears to be good camaraderie as well. I mean, if you think of the first squad made by Koeman, there wasn't one player that signed off through illness or injury or anything like that, because they all wanted to see what Koeman would bring. They all wanted to be part of the new dawn, if you like, and that's a good sign. But I think the players themselves feel comfortable with 5-3-2 at the moment, and I think they'll continue that as time goes on. But I think with a look ahead to the games in the autumn against Germany and France, I think that Koeman will demand that the team are a little bit more adventurous and a bit more expansive.
I think if you look at the players Netherlands have now, you've got to say that the strongest talents are centre backs. You know, you've got De Ligt, De Vrij and Van Dijk. They're Netherlands' probably three best players. So you got to play them in the 5-3-2. They all get the game. Offers security. We don't have really a holding midfielder anymore that can help, you know, keep it tight on a 4-3-3. That was a big problem with Strootman. And the only thing I worry about is how's it going to adapt when Netherlands are playing a team that we should beat. Your next friendly's up against Slovakia. Slovakia ain't going to come out and attack Holland, and we're not going to soak up and hit them on the counter because they're going to sit deep. So then how does it work when we come up against another team that wants to defend? That's, I think, going to be the only question mark going forward.
Agreed. That's one thing that stood out for me as well. Another thing I noticed was that it was Hans Hartebel and Patrick van Aanholt at wing-backs. Do you guys think that there's going to be players that will want to be in ahead of those two in future games when players are back from injury? And if so, who would you pick?
I think with the 5-3-2, one player that interests me going forward is Daley St. Graven of Ajax. I think his passing ability and the fact that he was a midfielder and he's now been turned into a wing-back makes him a big prospect for the left wing-back slot. You'd like to think Jetra Williams will get back to playing sometime soon, and if he can start firing in those crosses, then he becomes a big asset. The worry is that Daley Blind comes back and Koeman doesn't really want to mess up the midfield because Van de Beek, Proper and Wijnaldum have such a good game. Does Daley Blind automatically just go back into the midfield, or when Frenkie de Jong comes back, then Koeman might just put Blind at left wing back, which won't be as effective.
It's interesting you say that. I was thinking something you put on Twitter the other day, Michael. You said about the way Blint would come in back in. I quite like the idea of having Blint or De Jong, seeing as De Jong has played centre back for Ajax as a ball playing centre back. Why can't Blint or De Jong play in that third centre back role in the centre, and can then push forward and play those passes to more adventurous players? Because if you are playing a team like Slovakia, maybe he's the right option with the wing backs bombing forward and De Jong adding to that. It could be a way of releasing some of that pressure. I'm not sure. And also for the right back, I thought of maybe Rick Karsdorp might want to come back in. He used to be an attacking midfielder himself. He knows how to get those attacking moves going, and I think he might be the best option at right wing back going forward.
I agree with the Rick Karsdorp assessment, but it'd be interesting to see how the immense state of the injury he sustained. It kept him out for a long while. I think he's still out as well, actually, or he's just coming towards the end of his injury term. But he had a wonderful season with Feyenoord when they won the Eredivisie, and he's a very competent defender as well. And he can add he can add a lot going forward. But I think, from my point of view, Hans Hartebol, who had quite a decent game against England, in my opinion, with him being a natural right back and Koeman wanting to put the players in the right position, I would like to see Hans Hartebol get an extended run in the team and build up a fair few caps as time goes on.
Yeah, he's been scouted by Borussia Dortmund, I believe, at the moment, and fair enough, because he's done very well for Atalanta since signing for them from Groningen. Justin Kluivert made his debut and the international break. I just wondered what you two thought of his performance and how long it will be before he's a regular in the national team, and does he fit in?
I think his performance, he only got, say, 10 minutes, was encouraging. There was one run where he got in behind the defence, his pass was just a bit too close to the goalkeeper, and it would have reached Till for him to score an easy goal. Going forward, he's definitely an option for a national team. I think he's going to come up. Maybe Bergwijn might get ahead of him in a few squads. But I think right now he's been a bit overhyped in media around Europe. Not necessarily in the Netherlands, but around Europe he's definitely been... I think just because of who his dad is. If he didn't have Patrick Kluivert as dad, I don't think he'd be getting the attention around Europe that he's getting at the moment. His performances for Ajax recently have been much better. He didn't start the season very well, but he's starting to come of age, and I think next season's going to be vital for him. I hope his head doesn't grow a bit large and he decides to seek a move away to, say, the Premier League this summer, because I think that would be totally wrong for him. I think he needs another at least 1 year or 2 years at Ajax, and he needs to bulk up, get a bit bigger, get a bit stronger, get his confidence even bigger, and then he's ready for a move abroad. And he's definitely not ready for one right now.
I think coming on as a sub for Memphis Depay and making his debut against Portugal gives the Netherlands an outlet in that respect going forward. I've watched him firsthand this season for Ajax and was there last November when he scored a hat-trick against the Udinese. And it was in that 5-1 win, and for him to take such responsibility in that game, because, you know, for such a young player at the age of 18 to really want to pull his team over the line to get back into the game and then go on and win it by a country mile was admirable, really. But yeah, I agree with Mike. I think 1 or 2 seasons more in the Netherlands and maybe a potential move. Naturally, Kluivert, his father, Patrick Kluivert, is a big name, you know, has an illustrious history at club level and international level. So, of course, he's been involved in those circles since a very, very young age. And he's also been capped at under 15 all the way through to under 21 level. So he's no stranger to the Dutch national team setup. But, yeah, I think he's had a good season, and it's a good base upon which to work from. And it's be interesting to see how he's guided in future.
I think let's see how he gets on in the next 2-3 years with Ajax. If he can really get his head down there and really put some effort in, he can become a star player in the Dutch league, then for the national team, then see what happens. I really hope he gets off social media a little bit too, because he's become a little bit heady in terms of that side of life, and I just hope that he can really focus on football and not what's outside of it. Back to Abdul's questions, his list that he has right here. We've all praised the performance against Portugal, but is there any player that you think did not impress?
In the Portugal game, not really for me. Second half, maybe Tony Vilhena came into a bit of trouble. But I'd rather look at the England game and say that the players that didn't impress were Kevin Strootman and definitely Bas Dost. He definitely didn't take his chance. Maybe he didn't get the service from the wingers that he should have got. You know, Promise and Memphis still like to cut inside instead of crossing. It doesn't help Bas Dost, but I don't think, even when you're kicking balls, he wasn't holding it up. He was giving it away constantly. And he was probably the biggest disappointment for me of the international break, along with Kevin Strootman.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think those two players cover themselves in glory. I think Quincy Promes as well, although he's a very good player, I think he's a confidence player. I think when his confidence is up, you really see it. And when he's suffering a bit confidence-wise, he seems to dip. But yeah, it'd just be interesting to see with future squads going forward, because by the same token, the game in Amsterdam could have well been a draw, and Koeman's reign would have started with 2 games unbeaten. But to win one and to lose one isn't that bad, and I think we'll see surprises in different squads as time goes on. I think Koeman will enjoy taking his time in assessing players that are on form, assessing what needs to be addressed within the team, and it's a long road ahead. You know, this is just the beginning, and Koeman's said himself this is a job right up until Qatar 2022, and he's adamant that he wants the Netherlands to compete and make a very good impression in the run up to qualifying for Euro 2020.
Absolutely. I might link these last 2 questions together from Abdul. Do you think we can still use Robin van Persie? And are there any other players you think Ronald Koeman should select for the next friendlies? Because would Van Persie be in that bracket for both of you two? I personally say no. I think he's too old now, and he's not even fit for a whole game for Feyenoord. So why should we call it for the Netherlands? As for any of the players that should be selected for the next friendlies, the only player that comes to my mind might be Frenkie de Jong. But James, Michael, what do you think?
If I was to give 2 suggestions going forward, I would look at Marco van Ginkel and I would look at Jurgen Locadia of Brighton and Hove Albion, because I think both of those players have still got a lot to give. Both of them are also relatively young as well. So going forward, monitoring their club level and their club form, I would like to see them brought into the squad for the summer.
The only thing about Van Persie is he's not really playing as a striker anymore for Feyenoord, which is a bit interesting. He's playing as an attacking midfielder. If he keeps adapting to that position, maybe he could be useful for the Netherlands with his technique and his passing ability as well. But going forward, I want to see definitely Frenkie de Jong. Jurgen Locadia, definitely. He's perfect for a 5-3-2 formation with his pace and his strength up front. I would also like to see Steven Bergwijn. I thought it was strange when Koeman said in his press conference that he didn't pick Bergwijn because he's less of a winger than Kluivert, less of a natural winger, because he spoke to the under-21 coach who uses Bergwijn for the middle, and then so he didn't select him because he didn't want to use him for the middle, but then he picked a 5-3-2 where he would play that way, which I thought was a bit strange. So I like to see him if he continues his form for PSV.
A good point there, because they're not playing with natural wings at the moment, and Koeman knew he was going to play 5 at the back for a long time, I think. Unless he thinks in future that he could play an attacking winger as part of his 5 at the back, but that's a bit awkward, and I've only really seen Chelsea do that, where they would play like Pedro at wing back, but he didn't really look as if he was natural in that position at all. And speaking of that, actually, question from Farry: do you think Koeman placed Vilhena at left back for man marking a particular player, for example Cristiano Ronaldo, or does Koeman see him purely as a left back? For example, Vilhena almost got an assist when he set up Depay with that header. I do believe that Ronaldo's playing on the left and going for the middle. I don't think that Vilhena was meant to mark him, but he did do a great job getting forward, didn't he? On that left wing. He has played left back for Feyenoord in the past, but again, it's definitely not his position. And defensively, I wouldn't say he's the finest player. But what do you two think? Do you think this is a future position for him? Do you think Feyenoord might start to play him at left back as well?
No, I don't think so. I think this is primarily a midfielder who's played almost 200 times for Feyenoord in total. And in an attacking sense, for his own skill and his own development, I think it's important for him to stay in his current position. In the recent past, Vilhena was linked with a move to Serie A side Sampdoria, and he was quite close, but due to personal reasons that didn't happen. But I think him going forward at the age of 23, he will think that he will have more of a chance to make a step up to a different European league and continue his development if he remains in his current position in midfield.
Yeah, I totally agree with James. He needs to stay as a midfielder. Defensively, he's not strong enough, really. But it was an experiment by Koeman. He only called up one left back in Van Aanholt. He tried it with Vilhena. It worked for the first half, and his passing ability was definitely an asset going forward. But I think in the squads to come, we'll see actual natural left backs getting called up.
Yeah, I'd hope so too. Question from Vic. Donny van der Beek and Matthijs de Ligt stood out for him. Should we expect De Jong in future call-ups or any other under-21s for the midfield? That's a good question, and we have covered this a little bit already about which players should we see in future call-ups, but I did see that the under-21s were not doing very well recently in their fixtures. Michael, I don't suppose you want to fill us in on how they're getting on. Are there any midfielders that could potentially step into the national side from there?
The under-21s are captained by Bart Ramselaar, who already has Netherlands caps and could definitely step up in the future. They weren't impressive. I think it mainly comes down to coaching. Art Langelier decided to pick Bergwijn for the middle. It didn't work at all against Belgium. Netherlands dominated mostly possession but couldn't do anything going forward and got beat 4-1. And then against Andorra, again he picked Bergwijn through the middle. They scraped a 1-0 win thanks to a free kick. He changed in the second half and brought on Sam Lammers, but I just think Langelier, he's not really impressed me so far in his time as under-21 boss. We're not, we're second in the group to England at the moment. We lost to Scotland, who lost to Andorra. It's not great. But going forward, there is some talents that are in there that could make the step up. I've already said Bergwijn, Idrissi on the left wing, and Ramselaar for the middle.
I would argue that there's not a lot of central midfield talent at the moment, only because Bartla Ramselaar has been on the periphery of the national side, but I don't think he's properly pushed on since moving from Utrecht to PSV. What was it, a year ago? And I'm just not sure that he's going to make that final step to really make an impact on the international stage. The fact that he's a captain shows that maybe he's their best player as well, coming from that generation, maybe along with Bergwijn. Is this arguably a lost generation, this side?
If I can just elaborate on Michael's point about Art Langler, this was a man that won the first division with Zwolle, got promoted to the Eredivisie, and after one season of consolidation, left to become the head of the youth development at PSV Eindhoven. I agree with Mike. He's not really enamoured himself as a decent manager who can bring players on. But also, if you look at the previous list of his successors, you've got the likes of Fred Grim, Adrie Costa, Albert Stauffenberg, and if you go back to the reign that Foppe de Haan had when he was in charge of the under-21s from 2004 to 2009, that was the last real manager they had that was really bringing in player after player, not just in terms of the development for the players themselves, but players that can be of use to the full Dutch national team. And I think that's the talent is there, but I think maybe the under-21s might well be served better by a manager with slightly more experience and a bit more of an aura in being able to create a path for these young players to go from the under-21s to the Dutch national team in a seamless way.
I think it's not a lost generation, because you've got to think that there's some players that are actually in the national team that would be part of this under-21 side. So you've got Justin Kluivert, Gus Till, Fosu Mensah, De Ligt. They're all part of this generation that would be, if, say, Netherlands under-21s had to win a game going forward, maybe Koeman would allow these players to drop down to the Young Orange to try and get them to that European Championships. I think all four of them would improve this side greatly.
That's a really good point, and I didn't think about that one. So, yeah, moving on from that to Vic's second question, he doesn't think that Wijnaldum really impressed him in both those two friendlies. In the England match, I would agree with Vic. I don't think Wijnaldum was there at all in midfield. Him and Statham were pretty anonymous. The Portugal win, was he maybe the weakest player on the pitch, or did you see an improvement from Wijnaldum?
I definitely saw an improvement. His dribbling, especially, he kept the ball a lot better than he did against England. I think he was a bit bullied against England. I think he was shrugged off the ball constantly, but against Portugal he actually went on some good runs, which helped us to get forward on the pitch. I do think he was probably the weakest player on the pitch, performance-wise, but that's just because there's so many standouts.
I think going back to my point earlier, what I said about Quincy Promes, I think the same can be said of Wijnaldum, that he's very much a confidence player. I've spoken to many Dutch professionals who have played with him in the international setup and also at club level, and he's rated by all his fellow internationals that have played with him. I've spoken to players that when I asked them about the best players they've played with, his name always crops up, even players that are now playing in different countries. But I think maybe under Jurgen Klopp, Wijnaldum received so much confidence and so much fully motivated and using the right words and knowing what to say, whereas maybe with a new manager, that Wijnaldum thinks, will I get the same care and attention, for example. So I think, going back to my point earlier, I think it's Wijnaldum is also a confidence player in that respect.
As a final point on Wijnaldum, the fact that you say he's a confidence player, I'm looking at his goals right now for the Netherlands. He scored 3 in 3 games in the summer of 2016, and then he went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games without a goal, scored against Luxembourg, and since then hasn't scored another 8 games. So that's 1 goal in 17 games for his country. And I feel like that's what Wijnaldum brings to the game. When you watch Wijnaldum play for PSV, Newcastle, he went on runs where he scored plenty of goals from the position just behind the striker, and he was really effective. And that's what we all like to see from a player like Wijnaldum, playing in that 10 position. But yeah, 1 goal in 17 games, and that goal being against Luxembourg, tells you a lot about how he's playing at the moment for the national team. Next question. A player who's becoming a little bit forgotten at the moment is Vincent Janssen. So Jordan asks, should and could Vincent Janssen return to the Eredivisie, and if so, what club would suit him best?
My personal opinion, I think Ajax would suit him best. I think with Huntelaar's contract finishing at the end of this season, I think that would be a very shrewd move. You could also say about PSV, I don't think Feyenoord would come into the reckoning, because during his youth career he spent 4 years at Feyenoord, and Feyenoord were never really completely convinced, and I don't think he's forgotten that. So I think if a move back to the Netherlands is muted, I think that Vincent Janssen himself would look at maybe Ajax or PSV. But if I had to say which club would suit him best, I think he would suit Ajax currently. Yes.
I don't think he's going to come back to the Netherlands anytime soon. I think there'll be enough clubs that would probably take a punt on him. I think clubs in Germany, a couple in France, maybe even Italy, I think they would go for him. I don't think at this point in his career he would consider going back to the Netherlands, but if he did, the only club I could really see him at is PSV at the moment. I think if Luc de Jong left, then they would look for a new striker and he would fit the role. I think at Ajax they've got Dolberg, they've got Huntelaar, and I really want to see Sierhuis going forward, getting a chance. He scores goals for fun at the young Ajax in the 2nd division. I think he's pushing for a first team call up next season.
I think that Ajax wouldn't go for him either because of the reasons you stated, Michael. Dolberg, Sierhuis, and I think his best shot would be at RZ if he went back to his old club. It would only be a loan, of course. I don't think RZ would ever be able to purchase him. But having failed with Spurs, Fenerbahce, it hasn't gone well for him. I just think that the next step back there would be to go back to the Netherlands, and why not with RZ if they've qualified for the Europa League, for example. I'm not sure if a team such as Ajax, PSV or Final will want to really take a punt on Janssen. I know that he will be playing him back in the Netherlands. Well, the defences aren't the best, but I think they'd rather bring through one of their own strikers or rely upon a striker who's a bit more reliable on the continental stage, personally. Do you two think that he'll be back in the reckoning for the national team? Because he's always played his best games for the Netherlands, so is Koeman like to take that punt on him? Does he fit into the system?
Eventually, I think he will. I think he's just waiting to see what happens to him at club level. The reason why I stated Ajax instead of PSV personally is because the contract of Huntelaar is currently expiring and there's no news with regards to an extension. Dolberg, when his move to Monaco fell through right at the last knockings of the summer transfer window, because Ajax couldn't find a replacement, he was quite affected by that, and he was a bit disillusioned, thinking, will the chance ever come? So I think if someone comes in for Dolberg this summer, I think that might be that. So the door may well be open for Vincent Janssen in that respect. So we'll just have to wait and see.
I think I fit Vincent Janssen, who's playing, if it's at Fenerbahce. I know rumours in Turkey are saying that they want to extend his loan for next season. If he stays there, if he gets his form back, then yes, he's everyone's number one striker choice going forward. I
was surprised to see Ryan Babel continuously getting games for Netherlands. Isn't there a better striker than Babel, considering he's not a natural striker, he's more of an attacking midfielder? But I suppose into his later years he's lost that little bit of pace on the wing. Why is he important in Koeman's eyes, do you think?
I think Koeman is rewarding the fact that he's been on tremendous form for Besiktas, and Koeman is just rightly piecing together a squad of players that are on form and players that can do a job. I mean, Babel has scored some very important goals for Besiktas this season and was influential in their run to the Champions League last 16. And I think Koeman, looking at all the different options he has and looking at players on form, I think Koeman didn't see any problem in picking Babel. He's also very well experienced in the past with Deportivo La Coruña and Liverpool, and it's just a reward for current form, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. He's playing well for his club level. He's done that for the past couple of years. He was really good at Deportivo before he moved to Turkey, and he played against Portugal and he played well for me. His header was put on a plate for him by De Ligt, but throughout the game his movement was good. His hold up play was good. I've got no complaints if he keeps up his club form. If he's in the squads, then he's another option. He's probably a better option than Bas Dost at the moment.
Fair enough. Final question this week comes from Gareth. Do you think that Maurice Stijn would be a good fit for Heerenveen? Now, a little bit of background. Maurice Stijn is the VVV Venlo manager in the Eredivisie, and he's done tremendously well this season. He's got his newly promoted side in mid-table. They do fantastic against the bigger sides in particular. They play with great tactics. And would a bigger club such as Heerenveen be a really good choice for him to make a step up in terms of the league? Now, James has met Maurice before. In my opinion, one of his best interviews for Football-Oranje. So, James, do you think that Stijn would be a good fit for Heerenveen?
First off, Michael, thank you for the nice compliment. That's very nice. I think he would be a good fit for Heerenveen. But to give the listeners, to bring them right up to date with the current state of play, Maurice Stijn has confirmed that he's been approached by a club, but he doesn't wish to name names due to the fact that he wants VVV Venlo to first secure their safety before anything is brought out in the open. He's also admitted that he's spoken with the chairman, and that if a decent offer is received for Stijn and it's something that Stijn wants and the compensation is good, that the club will not stand in his way. One thing that is very telling is that Stijn has been at the club for 4 years, and it would be, if he was to remain at VfL Venlo and see out his contract. That would be 5 years, and he stated about how the club goes forward in the 5th year. Are the players still are they still open to his ideas? Is there still ability for the squad to move forward? He still believes the squad has ability and has perspective in that respect. With the news of what's happened with Ipswich today, with them confirming that Mick McCarthy will not be managing next season, I'm secretly hoping that that Stein will take over for Mick McCarthy at Ipswich, because although there are opportunities for him here in the Netherlands, I think that would be a wonderful opportunity for him, and I think he would take it with both hands. I remember when I interviewed him last August, and he said to me, my career finished through injury at the age of 27, so I never had the opportunity to go abroad. And so it's something he would definitely be open to should everything be right. But I think I think we'll definitely see him managing another club next season. I'm really keep a keen eye on it. I think he's really going places. I think if you think of the good work he did at Den Haag and the good work he's done at VVV Venlo the last 4 years, he's still only 44. I mean, he always likes to stay at a club for a certain amount of time, and I can definitely see him taking a step up. I hope personally it's to Ipswich, because I think you'll really see him working in a good academy, because Ipswich have always had a good academy. He would, with his visions of bringing young players on, I think that would bear fruit. But should be very interesting. I think personally we'll either see him at a bigger club in the Eredivisie, or we may well see him at Ipswich. We'll just have to wait and see.
Well, gentlemen, unless there's anything else you want to add this week in terms of the Dutch national team or the Eredivisie, thank you.
Just to let the listeners know, you've got Feyenoord Excelsior this weekend coming up. You've got PSV at home to NAC, and for the listeners, my interview with the NAC player at Outback, Fabian Sportskleder, is now available on the site to read, where he speaks about the mentality that NAC player have going into the last 6 games of the season and hoping to avoid relegation. So pleased to have the Eredivisie back this weekend, and should be many a twist and turn ahead in the next 6 games.
Yep, and a few announcements as well. There should be 2 more interviews up from myself in the coming week. You have to see who they are. And there's currently a competition on our YouTube channel, so check out the video on that. Competition closes 7th of April, so if you're still listening in that week of time, then you're not too late, and get entering.